It was a crisp October afternoon in Dallas, Texas, when my father called me to his hospital room. His words were simple, direct, but they carried a power I didn't understand until years later. What he told me that afternoon completely changed the way I live my life today. My name is Robert Martinez. I'm 45 years old and work as an engineer for a tech company here in Texas. My father, Miguel Martinez, was 78 when the doctors told us he had only weeks left to live. He had been fighting cancer for 2 years, but his body couldn't take it anymore. Throughout my entire life, my father had been a man of few words. He worked as a mechanic in a small shop in downtown Dallas, getting up every morning at 5 to arrive early to work. He never complained, never talked about his problems. He simply lived each day doing what needed to be done. I always thought he was an ordinary man, hard-working, but with nothing special to teach me about life. Have you ever felt like you knew someone completely, only to discover that you actually knew nothing about that person? That's exactly what happened to me with my father that afternoon in the hospital. I approached his bed and saw how he looked at me with those tired eyes but full of determination. His hands, which had worked with tools for more than 50 years, trembled slightly from the medications, but his voice was firm when he spoke to me. "Robert," he said, "there's something I never told you, something I discovered many years ago and want to share with you before I go." I thought he was going to tell me some family secret, some story from the past that he had saved for this moment. But what followed was something completely different. "When I was your age," my father continued, "I worked day and night, constantly worrying about money, about the future, about whether I would be able to give you and your mother a better life. I stayed awake thinking about all the problems that could come, about all the things that could go wrong." He paused, took a deep breath, and then told me the words that would change my life forever. One day I realized something very simple. The problems that kept me awake at night, 90% of them never happened, and the ones that did happen, I solved them when they came. All that energy I spent worrying about things that never occurred, all that life I didn't live because I was thinking about the future, was wasted time. My father took my hand, with what little strength he had left, and looked me directly in the eyes. "Robert, stop living in tomorrow. Future problems get solved in the future. Your job today is to live today, be present today, enjoy what you have today." At that moment, I didn't fully understand the power of those words. I thought it was just another piece of advice from a father to his son. But after his death, when I returned to my daily routine, I began to realize something disturbing. I woke up one morning and realized I had been living exactly as my father had lived for years. I would wake up worried about meetings I had the following week, about projects I had to deliver next month, about the possibility of losing my job next year. I was so busy living in the future that I had completely forgotten how to live in the present. How many of you recognize yourselves in this story? How many spend your days worrying about things that might never happen? I decided to put into practice what my father had taught me. At first it was difficult. I was so used to worrying that when I tried to focus on the present, my mind automatically jumped to tomorrow's problems. But little by little, I began to notice incredible changes in my life. When I ate, I actually tasted the food instead of thinking about work. When I was with my wife Sarah and my children, I was really present with them instead of having my mind elsewhere. When I walked through Clyde Warren Park near our home in downtown Dallas, I noticed the trees, the sky, the sounds of the city, things that had previously gone completely unnoticed. The transformation was gradual but profound. My stress level dropped dramatically. I started sleeping better at night because I no longer stayed awake imagining all the terrible scenarios that could happen in the future. My relationship with my family improved because I was finally present when I was with them. But the most surprising thing of all was that when real problems actually appeared in my life, I handled them with much more clarity and calm than I had ever achieved before. It was as if by not being constantly exhausted by imaginary worries, I had more mental and emotional energy to deal with real challenges when they appeared. 1 year after my father's death, I received a call that would normally have filled me with panic. My boss informed me that the company was going through restructuring and there might be layoffs. The old Robert would have spent weeks without sleeping, imagining the worst scenarios, worrying about things that were completely out of his control. But I remembered my father's words. Future problems get solved in the future. Instead of panicking, I simply updated my resume, started looking for job opportunities proactively, and continued doing my best work in my current position. In the end, I wasn't laid off, but if it had happened, I already had a clear action plan. That experience confirmed something my father had understood decades before I did. Most of our suffering doesn't come from the real problems we face, but from the imaginary problems we create in our minds. Now, 3 years after that conversation in the hospital, I've applied this philosophy to all areas of my life. In my marriage, I stopped worrying about problems we might have in the future and focused on strengthening our relationship day by day. With my children, I stopped agonizing over all the dangers they might face when they grow up and concentrated on being the best father I can be today. At work, I stopped living with the constant fear that something terrible might happen and began focusing on doing my best every day. Paradoxically, this has made me more productive and more valued at my company than when I lived in constant anxiety about the future. You know what's the most beautiful thing about this lesson? My father taught it to me without realizing he was teaching it. He had discovered this wisdom through his own experiences, his own mistakes, and decided to share it with me in his final days to save me years of unnecessary suffering. Today I want to share this story with you because I know many of you are going through the same thing I went through. You're spending your vital energy worrying about futures that might never come, missing the opportunity to live the only life you really have, the life of the present. If this story has reached your heart in some way, if you've seen a piece of your own life reflected in these words, it would mean the world to me if you could share that in the comments below. You don't have to hit that like button unless it truly resonates with you. But if you could tell me what worry about tomorrow is stealing your peace today, maybe together we can help each other find our way back to living in the moment. And here's something I'd love to ask you to do. If you know someone who's carrying the weight of future worries, someone who's lost in tomorrow's problems while missing today's gifts, would you consider sharing this story with them? Sometimes the right words from an unexpected place can reach someone exactly when they need to hear them most. My father passed away peacefully, knowing he had given me the most precious gift of his lifetime of learning. Now I'm passing that gift to you, hoping you might find the same freedom I discovered when I finally understood that life happens one heartbeat at a time, one breath at a time, and this moment right now is all we truly have. Remember what my father taught me. Tomorrow's problems will be solved tomorrow. Your only job today is to live today.